People say, how to hear the voice of God. How to hear the voice of God. Do you know it is wrong? You see, there's difference between identifying the voice of God and hearing the voice of God. God is talking and the devil is talking. But it is unto you to identify the voice of God. Why am I saying this? Samuel sleeping in the temple. God called him. But he thought it was who? Priest. Eli called him. For 3 times, Samuel couldn't identify the voice of God. And he went to the priest and he now said, it is God. When he called again, say, Lord, speak, thy servant heareth. And for the first time, Samuel identified the voice of God. So it's not that Samuel wasn't hearing. There's no problem with hearing. There's problem with what? Identification. Is it the voice of God? Or the voice of this? You're hearing so many voices. Which of them is the voice of God is the challenge. But some people are saying they are writing books how to hear the voice of God. They do music how to hear the voice of God. Is it a Christian that doesn't hear? Is it a boy doesn't hear the voice of God? The problem is identifying the voice. Who is speaking? When someone said, speak, your servant heard it. What was next? God began to what? Talk. So, the problem with people is that because they can't identify the voice and give the voice a permission, the voice can continue. For example, if I say, Simon, if you don't respond, I won't talk. Understand? Until you respond. And why will you respond? You will respond if you know that this is David calling you. If you hear a voice calling and you can't see the person, will you respond? So Samuel was right not to respond. He didn't see anybody. And that was his first encounter. He has never heard God talk. So he thought it was who? The priest. So I want to put it before you that God spoke with the voice of the priest. Why am I saying so? Because someone said, you are calling me. So someone heard the voice of who? The priest. The sound came in the voice of the priest. Now let me break something down. Do you know where God came in the voice of the priest? For God to talk to you, for you to accept his voice, he come in the voice. In some way, not all, but in one, there are many ways, but one way, he comes in a familiar, honorable voice to you. For example, if you're in a dream and I'm talking to you, you know that yes, God is talking to you. Because I represent what? God. If in a dream, if I'm pouring oil on you, you know that God is anointing you. But if in a dream you see a madman calling your name, will you respond? So some ways, for God not to make the man Samuel run away or get scared, he used the voice of his father. And the father now said, yes, it's my voice, but I'm not the one calling you. It is God talking to you. So listen to him. Are you here? So the problem is identification of the voice, not the hearing. Look at Moses. God was talking to Moses. He said, who are you? Moses didn't say, I can't hear you. He said what? Who are you? So there's nothing like if God is talking to you, you will hear. But the problem is to identify it is the voice of God or it is not the voice of God. He said, I am that I am is my name. To prove to him more further, the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If I hear a voice that look like strange voice, and the voice said, David, do not be afraid. I'm the God of your father Billa. Once I hear the name Billa, I know that there's some connection. And it's really true. Then the government to say, your father, Billa, he stepped down. James, my biological is called James. Where is your father, James? He has met my grandfather, Billa. He has come down to James. I will not be afraid again. You see how God is. So you have to be able to identify. It's not about hearing, it's about identification. Many people, God is talking. I have a good friend, he was talking, he asked me, Prof, how can I hear from God? I said, God is always talking. he was amazed. I said, God is always, he said, Prof, I want to hear the voice of God. He said, God is always talking. I said, yes. It's only you can't identify, but God is always talking. He's always talking. For example, your little child, when you call, and another man's call, and somebody call, it's not that the child cannot hear you, but you have a problem of what? Identification, because he has not yet been matured. So you realize that the child identified the mother voice first before the father, because the closeness of the child and the mother is different from the close of the child and the father, which I'm going to be sharing them very deep. One of the things you do to identify God's voice, deep things to identify God's voice, is by loving God. When you love God, have an intimacy with God. See, why did God call Abraham his friend? He didn't say my son. He said my friend. Why? They had an intimate. You know, somebody look at the brother and say, "This is my brother. We are more than it's like we are friends. It's no more like it's a friendship. You are more familiar with your friend. You exchange. So do you know some people share deep things with their friends more than their blood brothers? That means that God and Abraham were so intimate. They were sharing deep things. Because if you don't trust a man, God said to the man, get up, leave your father's house and your kindred and go to a place I will show you. And you say, agree and go. You are listening to an invisible voice. You can't see. The voice say go. If you don't trust the voice, will you go? So you now understand why God called the man his friend. So if you love God, you will know his voice. It's only a womanizer that pick the phone and say, hello, who am I speaking to? If you love your girlfriend, you know your girlfriend's voice. If you love your boyfriend, you know his voice. If you love your wife or your husband, you will know his voice. Say, hello, your girl or your wife take a different number and call her. And I say, hey, who is this? If I'm your wife, I will block. I won't call you again. If your wife say hello for the first time and you can't identify your wife's voice, you have a problem with her. I'm telling you. So that means that anytime God speaks to Abraham once, he responds because he was familiar with the voice of God. Why? There was an intimacy. There was a relationship. So you read the Bible, anywhere Abraham got to, he built an altar and there he worshipped the Lord.